stance on Kashmir is absolutely clear. It was our jugular vein. It is our jugular vein. We will not forget it. And we will not leave our Kashmiri brethren in their heroic struggle, what they are waging against the Indian occupation.
India will identify, track and punish every terrorist and their backer.
इस दरिया से हमारा पानी बहेगा या उनका खून बहेगा।
नमोस्तुते भोगाम्बिका देवी नमोस्तुते।
India is still coming to terms and perhaps never will with the devastating images of loss and anguish that we have seen unfold in the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror attack. The Prime Minister has unequivocally signaled India's resolve to make sure that Pakistan pays for this. As India prepares both kinetic and non-kinetic options, Pakistan is now showing signs of being unhinged and rattled. Much like Asim Munir's unhinged speech, a glimpse of which you just saw, a patently communal speech made days before the Pahalgam terror attack in which tourists were killed and targeted for their religion. Much like that speech, we're now seeing all manners of somewhat unhinged speeches from other members of the Pakistan public. We saw in the last 24 hours a shocking display of coarseness at the Pakistan High Commission in London, where a serving colonel of the Pakistan Army, a defense attaché, held up a poster of Indian Air Force hero Abhinandan Vartaman and then made a gesture threatening to slit the throats of Indian protesters who were protesting outside. There's a lot to talk about, and we have a very distinguished panel. I want to introduce them today as we look at what has happened and we look ahead at what might, could, and should happen. Joining me now is former Naval Chief Admiral Arun Prakash. Admiral Prakash has been one of our most erudite thinkers, quite apart from being, of course, a military hero. Welcome to the program, sir. Also joining us is the very erudite, very outspoken military veteran, General Shukla. Always a pleasure, sir, to have you with us. Welcome to the program. And also joining us is the ever spunky, outspoken veteran diplomat, Ambassador Veena Sikri. Welcome, all three of you. I don't think we could hope for a better set of three people who can help us navigate and understand as we look both back and ahead at how to make sense of this horror. Before we get started, I want to play out, many things. I think of myself as shock proof. I think I've kind of seen all that there is to be seen. But when I saw a Pakistan Army colonel behaving literally like a street thug, it was the most unsoldier-like behavior I have seen. I was pretty taken aback. I'm going to play out this little clip for you. This is the defense attaché at the Pakistan High Commission openly mocking the Indian protesters out on the streets right across. Take a look. I mean, I don't have words to describe this. This is by itself not significant in what happens between India and Pakistan, but the fact that this is somebody who is a serving colonel of the Pakistan Army openly coming out like this, I cannot ever imagine anyone in India, no matter what the provocation, behaving in this manner. As this has happened, the line of control is heating up. There has been significant escalation in a statement from the Indian Army. At all points across the line of control in the Kashmir Valley, there has been unprovoked firing, small arms firing from Pakistan, and India has responded appropriately as well. So we are seeing all of this happen as the government has issued a formal advisory asking broadcast platforms, channels to not show any live movement of troops and affiliated related movements. So we are now in that next phase of preparedness, looking at all options on the table: kinetic, non kinetic, overt, covert. What might the next few weeks and days look like? Let me start with Admiral Prakash. Admiral Prakash, you have been talking about how, as India makes the next steps, one has to be wary of identifying end goals, or at least medium term goals, and not inadvertently falling into any trap that Pakistan may be attempting to set. What might be this trap, and what should we be careful of at this point? Admiral Prakash.
Well, to start with, our political leadership is faced with a tremendous challenge and dilemma uh, from two or three sides. One is that there is tremendous public pressure and expectation that there will be retribution for what Pakistan has done, and rightly so. This was a dastardly act, and it requires a knock or two to be given to them. Secondly, apart from that, I mean, that is something emotional, revenge, deterrence, I mean, revenge, retribution, and so on. But the actual, at the heart of the matter is deterrence, that we must inflict such pain on the Pakistani, the deep Pakistani deep state, which consists of the ISI and general headquarters, army headquarters. Such pain must be inflicted so that they think many times before they contemplate any such action once again, which is more serious. I mean, that is the real crux of the issue. And thirdly, is an issue which we shouldn't disregard or ignore, and that is that the aim of this whole operation, apart from disturbing peace in Pakistan and the livelihood of the Kashmiris and so on, is to create a deep divide in India between Hindus and Muslims. There are enough crazy people going around, taking this up on a religious issue. Now, if we fall into that trap, then Pakistan has succeeded in one of its aims. So I think these are the three challenges that the government has to face. So far, they have acted with great deliberation and calibration. The gestures the signals they've sent out about suspending the Indus Water Treaty is a very serious step to take. Then, of course, the diplomatic issues and so on. So those are good initial steps. The second step is about kinetic action. Kinetic action, as I think our army chief said a couple of weeks ago, is that the Indian armed forces are capable of inflicting. We still have a degree of superiority over Pakistan. We can inflict pain on them, but we have to then plan for not just one action and maybe one reaction. It may lead to a chain of action reaction. It's an escalatory ladder. So we have to do deep planning and be prepared for the worst, so to say. So these are the three issues before our statesmen and political leaders.
So one is that the pain has to be long-term, sustainable, hit Pakistan where it hurts. So the motive or the motivation, the goals have to be established. The second is the fact that these tourists were killed on the basis of their religion, notwithstanding the attempt by brave local Kashmiris to try and save them. And we have those testimonies as well. You are saying, Admiral Prakash, that Pakistan's whole aim, especially when you join the dots with the very communal speech made by Pakistan's army chief just a few days ago, is to create a religious divide. And we've got to be careful, otherwise we're playing into Pakistan's hands.
Yes, I am. I mean, you would be playing right into their hands if you allowed, this whole situation to deteriorate into a Hindu versus Muslim situation. And I think our leaders should make sure that this doesn't happen. Make positive steps to ensure that we don't descend into a religious frenzy where the whole national security is concerned.
Yeah. Absolutely. So a lot to think about. Let me bring in on the Ambassador Sikri, and then I'll come to General Shukla as well. Ambassador Sikri, from the diplomatic perspective, we've had the first comments coming from Donald Trump. There's a sense in India that, America, this is not Chiti Singh Pura and Bill Clinton. This is not Kargil and the Americans. This is a different America. That this is an America that will largely be supportive. But we don't know how much Trump has been briefed, how much he knows, how much of the details he's getting into. So his first comments on record were somewhat general, and I'm just going to play them out. Take a look.
I'm very close to India and I'm very close to Pakistan, as you know. They've had that fight for 1,000 years in Kashmir. Kashmir's been going on for 1,000 years, probably longer than that. And it's a bad one yesterday. It's a bad one. Over 30 people.
Are you concerned that there's now tensions on the border between them? Are you concerned? How are you concerned about that?
Well, there have been tensions on that border for 1,500 years. So, the same as it's been. But they'll get it figured out one way or the other. I'm sure I know both leaders. There's great tension between Pakistan and India, but there always has been.
So you've done that.
Ambassador Sikri, I mean, what does one make of this? I don't know whether to call it an analysis. What does it mean? What does it mean, and should we be bothered, or should we count on the fact that the relationship is structurally deep enough that the Americans will not seek to restrain India?
Well, I think I would take 2 points away from that. First of all, I do think that President Trump is being deliberately vague. Of course, his reference to 1,000 years, 1,500 years is that's just a matter of rhetoric. But he's being deliberately vague, number one. Number two, I think he's saying clearly, I'm leaving it to India. Because like he said about Bangladesh when Prime Minister Modi was at the White House, this time too he's saying, they will do it, they will find a solution. So he's leaving it to India, number two. Number three, I would like to say that today itself in the Security Council, an important resolution has been adopted, condemning with no uncertain words the terrorist attack and saying that it must be overcome. And this resolution was moved by the USA. This is the US resolution which was moved in the Security Council, and it is a consensus statement issued by the President of the Security Council. And we do know that Pakistan right now is a member, the non-permanent member of the Security Council right now. So obviously they were forced to go along with this kind of a statement. And this is very unequivocal. It's a good statement, a good start for the Security Council. So putting all these pieces together with the US moving the resolution there and President Trump trying to be very vague, he's leaving it to India, number one. Number two, I would like to present what now seems to be a certain perspective on these attacks that is coming more and more out of Pakistan. And I think when we combine it with what Asim Munir said, this kind of his, ranting and deliberately, cursing people who are Hindus and so on, and trying to promote this Hindu-Muslim divide, this was clearly one of their objectives. But I think an important objective coming out with comments by the way the people of Pakistan are trolling their own army chief and their own army people, it is clearly part of Asim Munir's objective to regain the confidence of the Pakistan people. And he did this knowing that India will give a kinetic response, and then, the Pakistan army will rise, in defense. And so he will show himself as a hero to the people of Pakistan. But the Pakistan people have not fallen for it. The trolling of the Pakistan army chief is continuing. And I think that India's decision to first announce putting the Indus Waters Treaty into abeyance has been a masterstroke. It has shocked everybody because all these decades, the Indus Waters Treaty, even though this has been discussed for at least the last 15 years, that Indus Waters Treaty should be brought into play. It's a very unequal treaty to begin with. And India has been getting the short end of the stick on the Indus Waters Treaty for a long time. And I think the way in which we have done it, the secretary of the concerned ministry has sent a letter to her counterpart saying we're putting it in abeyance, citing all the reasons, including continued cross-border terrorism. This has really startled the people of Pakistan. They just don't know what to do. They don't know what hit them. They don't know how to react. And we've seen the rant from Bilawal Bhutto, which really makes no sense at all. But we do know, and judging by the meeting that Amit Shah took, the Home Minister took, India is very serious about this, and they have actually got a plan in mind. And this is going to really upset whatever Pakistan had planned in a very short time.
But here's the bind. I actually totally agree with your reading that a beleaguered Pakistan army chief seeks war with India because that's what burnishes General Shukla his credentials, as Ambassador Sikri says. Now, obviously, India wants to hit where it hurts, as Admiral Prakash said, which is not only the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Hafiz Saeed and the Jaish-e-Mohammeds of the world, but their patrons, which is the Pakistan military. Ambassador Sikri makes the point that Munir may want war because it helps him be a belated hero to his people. What kind of bind does that create for India's options, or does it not matter? what the consequences are for Munir.
See, Barkha, how I read the situation, and I'm willing to be corrected by both Admiral Prakash and Ambassador Sikri. I think it is a critical, seminal moment in our statecraft. Critical, definitely, and seminal if we can pull it off. Because whatever be the internal motivations of General Asim Munir, the fact is that Pakistan has thrown down the gauntlet yet again. Not only in terms of, the heinousness of what happened, the sheer savagery, the religious targeting, the communal terror, so the incident per se. But if you take it back to Balakot, where we had set new normals in our strategic outlook, he's saying, you did that, see what I do, are you willing to respond? So it is a challenge also to the facade and substance of our power. And, this point that Admiral Prakash said, now the central challenge is how do you re-establish deterrence? And here, in my view, that everything else is important. Indus Waters Treaty, diplomatic levers, financial task force, all that stuff. But what will be central to our response is calibrated kinetics. If that is missing, deterrence will not be re-established. And, the ideation and the debates and the narratives will take over and Pakistan will get away yet again. Look at what happened in Parakram. A fully mobilized army, they struck Kaluchak and we didn't act again. So here is the problem, between India, where there is a civilian leadership, and there is a military leadership. Their worldviews are different. And so we have to take up this challenge. And the second lesson, therefore, will be that as our foreign policy gets more muscular, which it is, you have to have a lethal instrument of force in the highest states of readiness. Highest states of readiness. So in an ideal situation, if this terror attack occurred at 2:30 in the afternoon, latest by the next morning, we should have gone in some form. We haven't. So, I look at it that way, and not because I wish to warmonger, but because I think, as India is now this, fifth largest, third largest, you're getting into the gymnasium of bigger power competition, you have to be able to respond militarily. The region is looking, just 1 minute, Barkha, the region is looking, the world is looking at it. So, this is my central point. And just one quick point, and then I'll just finish. How do you reestablish deterrence? Pakistan knows very well it uses terror as the central tenet of its statecraft. Terror, time and again. Next, when you reestablish deterrence by a combination of, if this calibrated kinetics can be done well, next time they think of doing such a thing, they should postpone the idea by 4 to 5 to 6 months. Because if you do not do that, and I can see now the debates getting around to say there are other options, kinetics is not important, I'm pretty certain, my hunch tells me you will be hit yet again. So calibrated kinetics are extremely simple. Now, we must just not fall into the trap because, he's waiting for you. Now, there is where operational art and all the generalship will come in. But calibrated kinetics are extremely important to reinforce the message that we first laid when we did Balakot.
Now, you are saying, General Shukla, two very important things. One is that in your estimation, ideally, the reaction should have been immediate. And now, as time goes by, you believe that there will be other factors that might take over. The second point that you make about calibrated kinetics, you see, calibrated kinetics works when you're actually able to predict and anticipate your adversary. You are dealing not with rational players. I just want to make the point that I do not find the Pakistan military. Look at the behavior of this thuggish behavior in UK. Look at Asim Munir's speech. I agree with Ambassador Sikri. Asim Munir's only relevance is hostility with India, right? So we've got to be mindful that how do you calibrate? It's just a question. I'm only asking the question. How do you calibrate for an adversary that is not rational? Before you answer, let me give you an example of this irrationality. Look at, there is a water fight between Pakistan, Punjab and Sindh, as we all know. What does Bilawal Bhutto do? Makes a crazy speech on the Indus Waters Treaty. I'm just going to play that out, General Shukla, and come right back.
भारत को कहना चाहूंगा कि सिंधु हमारा है और सिंधु हमारा रहेगा। या इस दरिया से हमारा पानी बहेगा या उनका खून बहेगा। ऐसे नहीं हो सकता, ऐसे नहीं हो सकता कि एक दिन तू उठ जाए और ये फैसला करे कि आप इंडस वाटर ट्रीटी को नहीं मानते हैं।
General Shukla, how do you calibrate this kind of adversity? And I'll come to Prakash and Ambassador Sikri. So briefly, yes.
So who goes first, Admiral Prakash or me?
You can speak about calibration and then I'll go to Admiral Prakash. Yeah.
So see, the Pakistani strategic military establishment is not known for its strategic wisdom, but low-level cunning they are masters. And in that sense, they understand us very well. You are saying they are unpredictable? In terror, how predictable are they? I mean, where do we start? Parliament, Kaluchak, Nagrota, they have done it with unending regularity. It has been done every 3 to 4 years. It was obvious to me, to anybody, that a terror attack from Pakistan would come. And see how do they move the needle of the debate? They know democracies very well. See, I have commanded a division there. I'm not justifying what happened. No matter what you do, strengthen the counter-infiltration grade, the counter-terror grade. When 50 groups are wanting to get through, 1 or 2 will get through. This will happen. And now you turn the needle of the debate. Intelligence failure, ye kya nahi tha, wo kyun nahi tha, legitimate questions. But what is the principal issue? Why haven't you been able to set up such deterrence that when he thinks of sending those 50 troops, because of the punishment you've inflicted on him, he doesn't? That is the whole purpose of deterrence. So if we can get our act together this time through, diplomacy, I mean, Indus Waters Treaty is a big step, and all this other stuff, target the Pakistan ISI, the military, the army chief, the architect-in-chief of this, and target them. I mean, there are options across domains along the escalation ladder in terms of targeting array. And military operations can only be de-risked. There will be repercussions. But we have to gather, I don't know if that is the right word, but the gumption and the strategic acumen to do, this calibrated kinetics. And just one more point. You see, since yesterday I've been hearing these debates. Unilaterally will India act? Oh, damn it. Who hit us first? They've hit us first. It is a provocation. Are we not going to respond? And so that is my whole, reasoning. Otherwise, we'll see the same stuff which played out many times in the past. Parakram, this, that. And now I shall yield to somebody wiser than me.
Right. Now, before I come to Admiral Prakash and Ambassador Sikri, one thing is, Admiral Prakash, to your point, don't let Pakistan divide India on religious lines. Be careful of that. Some of the glimmers of hope in these dark clouds have come from within Kashmir. The massive street protests, the testimonies of Shawlwala, Sergeant Bhatt, who responds to an appeal for help in a WhatsApp group, and the image of him running down the mountain slopes with an injured tourist on his back now viral. Adil was killed for trying to save tourists. We have also seen unprecedented protests in Kashmir itself. And I want to play out for you the story of a man who actually breaks down on the streets of Kashmir amid these protests. Take a look.
क्या अपील करेंगे आप?
हम यही अपील करते हैं, पहले जो इंसानियत का यहाँ पे कत्ल हुआ है, हम उसके खिलाफ हैं, हम इन दरिंदों के खिलाफ हैं। यहाँ पे इनोसेंट किलिंग हुई है, हम न ये देखना चाहते हैं कभी, न ये सुनना चाहते हैं। हम वक्त की गवर्नमेंट से गुजारिश करते हैं, इन दरिंदों को पकड़े और कड़ी से कड़ी सजा मिले। हमारा पहले इंसानियत का कत्ल हुआ, हमारा शरीयत, हमारा कुरान बोलता है एक इंसान का कत्ल करना तमाम इंसानियत का कत्ल हो जाता है। इसलिए हम इसके खिलाफ हैं। हमारी यही गुजारिश रहेगी, पहले इंसानियत का कत्ल हुआ, दूसरा जो हमारा रोजी रोटी वो हिट हुआ है, जो हमारा परिवार चलता था, जिससे हम कमाते थे, हमारा परिवार चलता था, वो अब खत्म हुआ। हमारा जो रोजगार वो मुतासिर हुआ। हम सब जो लोग हैं घोड़े वाले तबके से वाबस्ता है, होटल वालों से वाबस्ता है, एटीवी वालों से वाबस्ता है, गाड़ी वालों से वाबस्ता है, जो भी हैं वो सब टूरिज्म के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है। चाहे होटल वाला है, चाहे घोड़े वाला है, चाहे गाड़ी वाला है। आप देखिए जो यहाँ पहलगाम में अभी शटडाउन है, ये वहाँ का मातम नहीं है, ये हमारे पूरे फैमिली में, पूरे घरों में मातम छाया हुआ है। हम तबाह हुए हैं, हमारा फ्यूचर तबाह हुआ है, हम कुछ किसी के लायक नहीं रहे हैं। हमने कोशिश की थी मगर वो कोशिश एक तरह की नाकाम।
Right. So these are really unprecedented images from Kashmir. I'll start with you, Admiral Prakash. I think we have to find that hope from within the kind of responses that we've seen from the Kashmiri people. Also account from so many people later in the show of how they were saved by Kashmiris, right? BJP leader from Chhattisgarh talks about it. We already have the story of the Poniwala who was killed for trying to save these tourists. So yes, victims were killed for their religion, but yes, also there were Kashmiri Muslims who tried their best to save them. And now you saw that man breaking down and saying, punish these terrorists. Admiral Prakash, to respond to General Shukla's point about calibrated kinetics, we should have gone in earlier. If we spend too much time, maybe we won't do it. It'll happen again and again. What do you say?
Okay, now the need for us to, listen to these pitiful appeal from Kashmiris, etc., it shouldn't be there at all. I mean, if we say that Kashmir is an inalienable part of India, has been so for 78 years, a toot ang of India, I mean, are we speaking only of the territory of Kashmir? If Kashmir is a part of India, then the Kashmiris are also a part of India. Every Kashmiri is an Indian, and you have to assume that he is loyal and patriotic unless proved otherwise. Yes, there are overground workers. There are Kashmiris who are probably helping the cross-border terrorists and so on. Well, catch them and hang them. But you can't condemn a whole community and say they just because they are Kashmiris, they need to be beaten up and thrown around. So I think that issue needs to be tackled at the highest level of our leadership, that if Kashmir territorial is a inalienable part of India, then every Kashmiri must be assumed to be an Indian. He shouldn't have to prove his patriotism unless he's shown up as a traitor or a spy or whatever it is. Then deal with them. Now the other issue is that we have faltered to start with by coining this term cross-border terrorism. It gave an excuse for Pakistan to shelter behind. Anything that crosses the border, whether an international border or the LOC, should be considered an act of aggression, act of war, and it should have been responded accordingly. Now, this goes back many administrations, not just this government, but it started. Then we have failed in strategizing, as General Shukla pointed out. We don't have, if yesterday it happened, by this morning, by dawn, we should have done whatever we needed to do. That's how the Israelis would have done it. But we had 26/11. I believe the armed forces were consulted. They were all wishy-washy answers, etc. Obviously, there was no plan available. And has anything changed so far? Have we strategized? Do we have a doctrine? Then we had 2016, 2019. We had so-called strikes into enemy territory, so to speak. They should have conveyed a message that if you violate our sovereignty, this is the kind of knock that you'll get. But did it send the message? Because it should have been backed by another declaration or a doctrine or articulation to say that this is the red line that India has drawn. You cross it and you'll get a knock.
So sorry, I'm interrupting you. So you believe, like General Shukla, that the reaction should have been immediate and it should have been factored in already?
It should have been. We should have had a doctrine at least available to the political leadership to use if they so consider it appropriate. But do we have one? So even now, it is not too late. We should, and if we go kinetic, we must assume that that will be not just a one round show. They will respond, and then we must respond even more strongly, because we can't let them get away with it. So these things can be war gamed, and I'm sure the armed forces are war gaming them. So when you say, is it predictable? Of course it's predictable. We can war game various options. We do this, they will do A, B, C, and so on. And then, I mean, these are all things that armed forces do regularly. So I think this calibrated plan should be available. Options should be laid before the statesmen, and of course, at the same time, diplomacy must go into top gear. We must invite international opprobrium on Pakistan. We get their generals, get them sanctioned. I mean, USA goes around sanctioning Iranians and Russians and so on. Why can't we persuade them that this is a terrorist state? Get the DGISI, the Chief of Army Staff of Pakistan, sanctioned. Get him sacked if possible. I mean, if we have so much influence in Washington, let's build intolerable pressure on the diplomatic front. Then we've got economic instruments in our hands. We can start interfering with their shipping traffic. I mean, we can do all that, but we need help from our friends and allies and international support. So there's a lot of things that we can do in addition to kinetic action, which must be premeditated, well planned, and not a one-shot sort of show.
Right. So both Admiral Prakash and General Shukla have made the point about a strategic doctrine that would have allowed the option to the government of an immediate response within the next few hours. Let me come to Ambassador Sikri on this idea that diplomacy now has to be so aggressive that, yes, Pakistan generals have to be seen as basically, the epicenter or the chief patrons of terrorism, right? That is where the diplomacy should be directed. Ambassador Sikri.
Well, let me say absolutely clearly that I think in the last 10 years, you have seen a very different approach to what Pakistan is doing. I think to say that there has been no change in the strategy between earlier and this government is wrong, because I think that what we saw as a wishy-washy response earlier after 26/11, what we've seen now with Balakot and the surgical strike are two different responses. And now I think the idea of getting an immediate response, saying by now people should have gone in, this is actually could well turn out to be a knee-jerk reaction, because this is what Pakistan wants us to do. This is exactly what Asim Muni's plan was. I think our first set of announcements that we made after the CCS meeting, including the putting into abeyance of the Indus Waters Treaty, was remarkable. This Indus Water Treaty decision is a very strong and correct decision, which is equivalent to many, many kinetic strikes, which may or may not bring you the desired response. I'm not ruling out a kinetic strike at all. I'm sure, as Admiral Anup Prakash mentioned about war games, I'm sure they've got their strategies ready, but they don't have to act when they are expected to act. Whether they act 24 hours later or 48 hours later or 5 days later is a matter of decision and strategy that we should leave to the armed forces. It doesn't have to be announced in the public either. I think that, the decisions that we have made already, the impact of Balakot and the surgical strike have been felt on Pakistan. Yes, I agree that the people of Jammu and Kashmir, their response this time has been very much, against the terrorist attacks, which was quite different from the earlier responses. And I fully agree also that the few underground and overground workers who have definitely helped in this attack, this should now definitely be exposed. And we already have the names. We already have the name of the student who went on a student's visa to Pakistan in 2018 and came back last year with 3 or 4 Pakistan citizens with him. And that he is now being named, a 20 lakh bounty has been put on his head. All this has happened within the last 3-4 days. So it's not that there is a stalemate. It's not that we don't have enough evidence placed before the international community. I can certainly tell you that from the diplomatic response, that evidence has already been placed and is being placed and will be placed. I fully agree that Pakistan should be declared as a state sponsor of terror. The whole world should get together to say that Pakistan is a state sponsor of terror. I think we should work to get Pakistan put on the blacklist of the FATF, because obviously when these attackers come, they're getting their finances from somewhere, they're getting their weapons from somewhere, and all the international support is there. But I think that all this is being done, all this is being taken into account. So I think that the response has been totally comprehensive, and I would not rule out any action in the very near future on this matter. But the diplomatic stuff, the diplomatic force of India's telling the world is very much there. This is the first thing that happened. We do know that the ambassadors were called to South Block within 48 hours of the event happening, or less than 48 hours of the event happening. They have been told exactly what has been going on. They've been given all the data, and the continuing interaction in the state, in the world's capitals, is continuing. So I think that there is no shortfall at all of the strength of India's response, of the determination of India, as stated by Prime Minister Modi in Madhubani yesterday. It has been or day before. It's been completely unequivocal, and I think that we still do not have to show our cards to Pakistan before the action is taken. We do not need to. We should not do it, and we will not do it. But the action has already been taken, and the impact of that, let me tell you, the impact of water for the coming summer months is going to be terrible in Pakistan. The whole focus is on that, and they are wondering, how the government is going to be able to tackle that. There is no tackling for it. The Rabi, we do the Shapur Kandi barrage, which came on stream last year, is going to make sure that not even a drop of the Rabi river goes into Pakistan. And we do know that as far as the Kishan Ganga and Rattled projects on the western rivers, we are already going to do the desilting, and that will increase the water storage, so that the water storage will increase, and so the flows will, even a 5 or 10% reduction.
But ma'am, it's going to take time. While the symbolic signaling is very important, it is going to take time to be able to execute the suspension of the Indus Water Treaty, right? So given that, yeah, go ahead briefly, and then I want to move on to the others.
I was saying that even a 5 or 10% reduction in the immediate 3-4 months ahead, the summer months ahead, even that is going to have a tremendous impact. We already know there are whole regions of the Indus River which have dried up in Pakistan. The water is not even reaching Sindh. In Sindh, it's a huge issue with Punjab, that the water is not reaching them. It is being taken by the generals in Punjab, who use it to irrigate their own farmlands, where they get hundreds of acres of land for just being in the Pakistan army. So
I think
we should not underestimate this weapon, but I do not rule out any other kinetic response. I think we should not do that at all.
Okay. I hear you. As we look at you, I think the argument you're making is the strongest non-kinetic response has been taken. There could be others. There could be an Indian embrace of Baluchistan. There could be, many options on the table. In our last comments, we'll look at some of them. But first, I do think that it's important to keep also telling the stories of the Kashmiri people who are coming forward and saying, please punish those who did this to us. And we have a very moving account from a BJP leader from Chhattisgarh who speaks about how a Kashmiri man called Nazaka saved him and his family. Take a look.
जो बंदा मेरे बेटी के पैर के पास लेटा हुआ था, उसका सर पे शूट किया और उसके मांस के चिथड़े खून आके मेरी बेटी के ऊपर पड़े। और मेरी बेटी जो थी वो मेरी वाइफ से बोलने लगी, मम्मी खून। तो मेरी वाइफ बहुत डर गई। वहाँ जो हमारे मित्र नजाकत भाई वो लक्की थे, और तो मिलिट्री ने नजाकत भाई से पूछा और उन्होंने उससे बताया कि ये मेरी बेटी है। तो फिर उन्होंने वहाँ पर उनसे झुक के नमाज पढ़ने और क्या कलमा पढ़ने के लिए जैसा उन्होंने बताया उन्हें कहा गया, तो उन्होंने झुक के नमाज पढ़ना चालू की। और
नहीं, एक सेकंड, नजाकत से आप टेररिस्ट ने नजाकत जी से पूछा कि ये आपकी बेटी है, कि तो नजाकत ने बोला ये मेरी बेटी है, और फिर उन्होंने कलमा पढ़ा ताकि वो गोली ना मारे।
जी, गोलियों के दौरान वो यहाँ तक कि वो मुझे लकी भैया बोलने लगा मेरे बेटे को यहाँ से निकालो। मैंने बोला बेटे को नहीं, आपको भी, मुझे गोली लग जाए लेकिन आपको कुछ नहीं होना चाहिए। जी, वहाँ पे मतलब सरोसर गलत हुआ है, इंसानियत का जनाजा उठा है, ये चीज नहीं होनी चाहिए थी। ये पीसफुल जगह है।
Kashmiri man pretended that the BJP leader's daughter was his own daughter, read the kalma, managed to get them all out. And, you also have these stories that are necessary to tell in the midst of all of this despair and devastation that we all feel. Let's start last comments. I'll start with you, General Shukla. Where from here? What are the next few weeks going to look like?
Before that, just I want to say a few things. One is, these protests that you showed. You see why they are so important. In the valley, there was a code that I remember when I was commanding a division in Baramulla, an encounter would be happening 900 meters, a kilometer from Gulmarg, and Gulmarg would be peaceful. There was a code between this whole ecosystem not to touch these tourist spots. So in that sense, it's another uptick. All the visuals that you show is once again why this is so heinous, because it's a direct challenge to the secular fabric of India. The declamation of General Asim Munir of 16th April was a dog whistle towards this. And therefore, the savagery and the lowliness of this act is so much that it deserved a response. Now, this kinetic response, just let me nuance it. The fact that we did Balakot, we did surgical strikes, were a new normals in our strategic outlook. That was the big gain. Now we must reinforce it. And my short point is this, that the sooner you do it in these situations, it is better, because these things have been coming, it for long. If you delay it, if it is done for thoughtful purposes, fine. But if you delay it, Parakram is a good example. From the military strategic point of view, it gets more and more difficult. That's the only point. And in the meantime, just look at the arguments. If the mere freezing of the IWT is an act of war, all these terror attacks, are they not an act of war? When the USA does what it does to Soleimani or al-Zawahiri, does it present legal dossiers? Now, that is a function of power. And it is those points, that I'm trying to emphasize that are equally important. Of course, one way is what Ambassador Sikri is suggesting, that you wait, diplomacy first. What if you had acted? What will it do to your diplomacy? Your diplomacy rides on strong military leverage. So the point that I'm making is that as time passes, should our game in national security become more sophisticated, nuanced, and perhaps more pointed? That is the point I'm making.
Ambassador Sikri respond that the freezing of the Indus Water Treaty is good but insufficient.
Will it restore deterrence? That's my point.
Yeah. Ambassador Sikri? Ma'am?
Well, my question is, my point is very simple. I fully agree that a kinetic response is very important, and I do not rule it out at all. What I'm just trying to say is that, number one, the first set of responses, including the putting into abeyance of the Indus Waters Treaty, is a very significant first step. It's never been tried before, and now having tried it and also worked out a plan to put it into action effectively in the next few months, and then, of course, going on into the medium term as well. This is very important, and the people of Pakistan, you have no idea what a deep impact it's having on them, number one. Number two, I think we have to go ahead because we know that the Lashkar-e-Taiba has taken responsibility for these attacks. I fully agree that the attack on innocent tourists is an act of war. It should be declared as an act of war. And the Lashkar-e-Taiba has taken responsibility for it. So the responsibility develops fully on the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the people supporting the Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is, of course, the ISI and the Pakistan Army. So those calls for international action on these people have to come immediately. And as I told you, we've already discussed about declaring Pakistan as a state sponsor of terror and, getting them blacklisted in the FATF. So these are the international responses. The domestic response, non-kinetic, we have taken. The kinetic response will come. I'm fully sure of it. It'll come at a time and place of our choosing. And it will be effective. I'm absolutely sure of that.
Give Admiral Prakash the last word. Both you and General Shukla have made the point of the need for a strategic doctrine that would have allowed an immediate response. Given that response did not happen immediately, do you agree with General Shukla that a delay is not good unless there's a reason for it? Or do you think that actually an element of surprise always has to be retained in any kinetic action?
Are you asking me?
Yes, sir. Last word to you, sir.
Yes, I think a delay is not really important as long as the inevitability is assured that it will happen. In fact, we should take our own time, but we should make sure that whatever we do and when we do it should have consequences over a long period. It shouldn't be just a one-day show, as I said. And the only way to do is to ensure that the pain that is inflicted on Pakistan is such that it will think 100 times before repeating this kind of thing. So for that, you need a whole of government approach with the armed forces, the diplomats, the economists, etc., pulling together. And we do need some kind of a doctrine, a Pakistan-oriented doctrine. This problem is not going to go away tomorrow or in a year or two. It's already been 78 years. We've lived with this, and we've done not enough to curb this menace. So whatever we do now, the next few days are going to be tense, and hopefully they're going to be fateful, because it should decide the fate of the subcontinent. Whatever we do should ensure that Pakistan gets lessons that this kind of thing shouldn't be repeated. So as I said earlier, it should be a combination of military, kinetic, diplomatic, economic, all pulled together to bring unbearable pressure on Pakistan, and to teach the Pakistani deep state, which consists of the ISI, army headquarters, and of course the politicians who are not so relevant, to teach them that this kind of thing will get them a knock on the head. One point about two more points I want to make. One is that you showed scenes of these poor Kashmiris protesting and crying out their hearts aloud. I am a Kashmiri. I've grown up in Kashmir. I've seen all these people, Godawalas, Tongawalas, etc. So I know what they're all about. Secondly, in the Indian Armed Forces, we have a term called OLQ, officer-like qualities. Obviously, in the Pakistan Military Academy, Kakul, they have lowered their standards quite a lot, so that the guys you showed on TV must have got -2 in OLQ when they passed out of the academy. I think you should stop showing that Colonel fellow standing on top of the embassy.
Yeah, but the point is, do you just ignore it? Do you just ignore that?
Him. Yeah, absolutely.
Ambassador Secretary, you're saying something. Ma'am, you're saying something. I think Ambassador Secretary is trying to say something, ma'am.
Yeah, I said that image is so shocking, and not only unofficer-like, undiplomatic. I think it should be pointed out to the British authorities, and that guy should be declared persona non grata in the UK. You can't do this. You can't come out and pretend and show that you want to kill people who are standing in front of you. That's really a criminal act, and for that you should be declared persona non grata immediately, I think.
And we will refrain from commenting on the Chief of the Army Staff of Pakistan.
Yes, also.
Correct. Absolutely. It all starts there. That is the bottom line. It all starts there. And any action, kinetic, non-kinetic, both, has to actually go for the root. The root is not even the Lashkar and the Jaish. The root is the Pakistani deep state. The root is the Pakistan army. The pain and the cost has to be inflicted on Pakistan's generals. I think that is quite clear. And if we do not do it this time, then calling this an inflection point, calling this a seminal moment, we are doomed to be in this moment again if we do not actually treat this as a moment after which nothing should or can be the same again. Thanking all of you, our very distinguished panel, Admiral Anand Prakash, former Navy Chief, Ambassador Sikri, senior diplomat, and General Shukla, military veteran. Thank you so much, all of you. And thank you for continued coverage on the aftermath of the Pahalgam terror that continues here at the Mojo Story. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.